All right, so we are here with Mikkel Becker of Fear Free Pets, and I am just so honored to have her on the YouTube channel with me. I had the honor of meeting her at the Pet Sitter World Conference in Cleveland a couple of weeks ago, and I followed Mikkel online for a while, and truly, she is just such an inspiration to me, and I know to so many other pet professionals. So thank you for joining us.
Oh my gosh, Doug, you are such a joy. Like the moment I met you at the conference in person, I was like, oh, I knew we were going to be fast friends. Like you just have such a good energy. And I'm so excited to hear all the ways that you are just improving lives for pets and their people. And just your enthusiasm for caring for the emotional well being of pets is just contagious. So thank you. Equally a huge fan of yours.
Oh, well, thank you. That really means a lot coming from you. I've learned so much from you and from the Fear Free courses, so that really means a lot to me. So I would love if you could start by telling us a little bit about your history. Did you always know that you wanted to work with animals, and what was your childhood like growing up?
So my dad is a veterinarian. My dad is Dr. Marty Becker, and I grew up with him. Being a daughter of a vet, I always loved pets. Always, always, always. But my mom had lost a schnauzer when I was a little kid. And so it was just so hard, and it's hard when you lose a pet because it's like, in some ways, like just losing this beloved part of the family. And so I remember just begging my parents to let me have a dog. And so I worked for just literally years. I saved up starting when I was probably 3 or 4, saved up to buy my own dog. And so
Oh.
I got this wire-haired fox terrier named Scooter when I was in kindergarten, and she was my baby. But man, Scooter gave me a lesson in life and in dog training from a very early age. So I grew up with a dog who was definitely, super cute, but super, super naughty, did lots of things. She loved to run away and dig and steal food. And she was reactive to other dogs. And, you know, I remember actually, it's funny in the fact that I ended up becoming a dog trainer because I actually remember going to a dog training class with her. So Scooter is my little dog who was kind of hard to take out on walks because she'd find different ways. I mean, she was such an escape artist. She would find ways to get out of her collar, to get out of her harness. Like I was always, on the chase after her, and then also reactive to, other dogs. And I remember going to a dog class with her, and we were like the dog that was like, yeah, you don't want to be like that dog, because she was just the one that would act out. And anytime the other dogs come close, Scooter would be, "Arr," and getting ready. And I was like, ooh, this is stressful. And so this is back, I'm 36 now. So this is back when I was pretty young. And I just remember being in class, and it was more kind of coercive method. So I remember the trainer coming up to me. She's like, here, let me take your dog. And she took my dog Scooter when Scooter went to growl at some of the dogs that were passing by. So they were really setting her up for failure so they could correct her. And so they brought the dog right in front of her. And of course, Scooter growls and lunges. And then as soon as she did that, the person snapped the leash, corrected her so hard that she spun off her feet, did a couple flips in the air,
Oh
landed
no.
hard. And I was like, oh, and Scooter is my baby. I mean, Scooter is
Yeah.
like my world. And I was so upset. And I got in the car with my mom, and I'm like, Mom, I never want to go back. Like I never went back to that class. I'm like, I never want to do dog training ever. And I'm like, I'm never again. And lo and behold, I end up doing training without realizing I'm doing training in terms of just doing it more like how I would do it now, where it's really based on rewards, it's based on relationship. And so I'm building this relationship with Scooter, having her do things because she wants to, because it's fun. And so it was really cool because Scooter, who was the dog that was, on the verge of getting kicked out of class, we ended up quitting the class because of the stress. She ended up becoming a 4-H obedience champion
No
over
way.
all of the dogs. Yeah, and
That's
it was so cool. It
amazing.
was just like, yeah, and it was like just such a fulfilling experience. And to have that and have her, the dog that would run away all the time, we could just, have her off leash, and she could just, she just wanted to stay close. And it was such a profound change. And so that was kind of when I started to get into training. Didn't necessarily even know it was training at the time. And also I was really into showing horses. And so I went through college thinking I wanted to be a broadcast journalist because I wanted my goal back in the day is I wanted to be the next Diane Sawyer. Like I just loved her, my hero. And so that's what I went to college for. And I just my dad ended up so he wrote some of the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. Do you remember some of those from back in
Yeah,
the
I
day?
used to
Chicken Soup for the
love
Soul.
those. Those are
Yeah.
my favorite.
Yeah, so he did the pet one. So he did the Chicken Soup for the Dog and Cat Lover Soul, Pet Lover Soul, so the different
I
pet
had
ones, and it
all
was
of
kind of a
those.
crazy. Oh, yeah, you'll have to yep, those were from my dad, so it was a really cool and it honestly, like, that was really serendipitous how that all came about too, because my dad at the time was just more a veterinary lecturer, so he was known more just kind of in the veterinary field, and the way that he even got into chicken soup was so serendipitous because my dad would save away books for my brother and I from when we turned 18. So we had this time capsule where he'd get the top books of that year every year, would send them off to the authors with a pre-stamped envelopes and everything ready so they could just send it right back, but would try and get them to sign it. And so my dad actually had some chicken soup for the soul books there at Mark Victor Hansen on their desk and had it there for them to sign for my brother and I. And so at the time they were thinking, hey, we should do something with pets. We should do something chicken soup with some kind of animal thing. And they're like, well, who should we get? And so they're talking, trying to figure it out. And somebody says, oh, well, there's this guy, Dr. Marty Becker, who lectures and does stuff in the veterinary world. And he's like, wait a second. I have that guy's book right here on my desk to sign for his kids. And so it just kind of was meant to be, I think. So and from there talked to my dad, so he got into chicken soup for the soul and then started doing Good Morning America, so he did that for 17 years, which was such a neat experience, and that's how I really saw Diane Sawyer, saw what a just a beautiful person she is, like just such a kind, genuine person. And so that's, she really was my hero. And so I wanted to be just like her. And so I went through school, I went to college at Washington State University. And as I was going through, I remember so we went to Good Morning America had their 30th anniversary party. And so I went there with my dad. He did the Good Morning America the day before. Then we went to the show and it was really cool getting to see some of the people there in person. We saw Larry King come in and different people in the field. And we're just there kind of like, people watching like, wow, this is so cool. And Charlie Gibson comes in and Diane Sawyer comes in. And what was so surprising to me, I mean, honestly, a shock is the day before I'd had her sign the shirt for me that said the next Diane Sawyer, and she signed it for me. Aim higher, Mikkel, you'll be the best. I'm like, oh yeah, right. But it's just so cute. She's so sweet, but right away, rather than saying hi to anybody else, she just made a beeline for my dad and I. We were right up there near the bar, and I was like, what? Like this is like, oh wow. But it was really crazy. She just had it on her heart. She was on a mission. She came up to me and she goes, Mikkel, I've been thinking about it. I know you want to be a broadcast journalist. I know you want to do this, but she's like, you got to find something else. She's like, you're too nice for this business. It is dog eat dog. It's cutthroat. It's mean. She goes, you're not like that. Find something else. And I was like, what? No, I'm not.
Wow.
No, I want to be you. And it really hit me. And it's interesting in Dan Harris's 10% Happier book. He talks a lot about like what that atmosphere is like in the broadcasting world. And so I can definitely see where Diane was coming from. And so while it was really hard advice, it was also really good, solid advice because now, after graduating with a degree in intercultural communication, my dad talked me into going into training and actually doing something with what I have been doing earlier on in my life and actually doing it as a job. So it's been really a blessing to be able to marry the two of being able to do video, but more so being able to have my own voice and to be able to really just educate people on something that I'm so passionate about, which is about improving the emotional and physical well-being of pets. So that's really what Fear Free is all about. And so with my dad was the founder of Fear Free. He came back from a veterinary lecture where he heard Dr. Karen Overall, veterinary behaviorist, speak. And she was saying that fear is the worst thing a social species can experience, and it causes permanent damage to the brain. And so she was saying a lot of times what we're doing with pets during regular veterinary care is causing repeated severe psychological damage. And my dad, it just hit him because when you are in the veterinary hospital, stress can be so common. It's just so almost normal and normalized, you don't even see it. And so my dad, it just hit him to think like, wow, I'm actually causing damage by trying to care for the physical health of pets. I'm causing damage in the process. And so he came away from that just a changed person. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. So he has seen signs of stress in pets everywhere. And so that's what gave him the idea to create Fear Free, which is a program that really teaches pet professionals to recognize fear, anxiety, and stress. And it was created by dozens and dozens of veterinary behaviorists and different behavior and veterinary professionals, and has gone from started off within the veterinary industry and helping different veterinary professionals, but has expanded to groomers and now to pet sitters and to boarding and daycare and animal trainers and also in the shelter world. So Fear Free is just really boomed and there has been such a need for it. So it's just amazing, and it really goes on trend too because people are recognizing that pets have emotional needs and their emotions are very deep, very complex like us as people, and so we can't overlook how that pet feels in that experience, whether it's every day in the home or it's specific care that they're getting at the vet or the groomer. We need to make it as low stress as possible and make it them as comfortable as possible.
Oh, wow. Man, that's that's amazing. You've had such an incredible journey. I mean, your experience with Scooter as a kid, that makes me think of my childhood with Skip. I had a Jack Russell, and he taught me a lot of those same lessons. He was a typical wild Jack Russell, and
Yep.
he was a master at digging out of the fence and chasing the neighbors and stealing
Mhm.
food off the table, and
Oh, yes. Yep.
yeah, he was my best friend though, and he's the inspiration for everything that I do now. And I had a similar experience where, we knew that we needed to get more training, and my mom had bought these books. I won't say who they were by, but by a what was a popular dog trainer in the 90s, that was not the best
Mhm.
techniques. And I remember going through this stuff with my parents when I was a kid, and even in elementary school, thinking, this just isn't right. This isn't
Mhm.
how I want Skip to be treated. And I could see the looks that Skip was giving me, and I could tell that he was telling me, I'll do what you want me to do, but not this way. This
Mm.
isn't right. And I always kept that in my mind, and that's why that opened me up to positive reinforcement, and then later on in my career to Fear Free, and just paying attention to that, like you were saying, the emotional well-being of all animals, and even the humans around us too. It's totally changed my life, and I think what you guys are doing is just incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Um, and to grow up with Marty Becker as your dad, I mean, that's got to be. I mean, I'm kind of a nerd, but I mean, having worked in the animal world for almost a decade now, it's like I know who Marty Becker is.
Yeah.
That had to have been such a inspiring and unique childhood. And so how old were you when he had this revelation of Fear Free, and kind of walk me through what it was like for creating what has become Fear Free now?
Yeah, so I was probably in my early 20s. So I had just graduated from college and I had just gone through the San Francisco SPCA Dog Training Academy with Gene Donaldson, which just, I mean, it was just a revelation where I was like, wow, this is profound. And so I came back and I was just revitalized. And I remember going into the vet hospital and seeing different pets there and also learning. So I wanted to learn kind of the vet tech side because I was always interested in being able to have dog training within the veterinary hospital. And so I was just learning it more so, okay, this is what the technicians do. And so not, putting my training aside just for this time was I was kind of interning there And what I experienced, I was like, God, this doesn't seem right. I remember at San Francisco SPCA where we were teaching pets to cooperate with nail trims. We were teaching them to be cooperative with their handling versus before Fear Free, when I was working in one of the veterinary hospitals that my dad also worked in, it was just the typical traditional hospital where you had to do a lot more forced holds with pets in order to get care done. Fast forward to today, that same hospital is now Fear Free certified. Everyone is involved in the pet's emotional well-being. Pets are free. It's like we're doing nail trims with some great food distractions. We have some really tasty treats there. Rather than the pet being restrained or held in place, they're allowed to go where they're comfortable. And a lot of times they're examined right on their guardian's lap. A lot of times they'll go right on the veterinary professional's lap. Like, we use a lot of non-slip mats, which is important because pets, one of the number one fears for pets is the fear of falling. It's just this primal fear. And Dr. Temple Grandin, who is also a big supporter of Fear Free and is on our advisory group, that's one of the main things that she notice in pets is that you really have to allow them to feel that firm footing and to feel stable, because if they feel off balance and have any fear of falling, like, they are going to have that innate fear, anxiety, and stress. So, today it's a completely different picture, but at the time it was more traditional. And so I remember talking to my dad about it. And so I was starting to put that bug in his ear. But once he came back from hearing Dr. Karen overall talk, like, that's when it really changed. And it was, he was on a mission from then on, and the name Fear Free came to him, and he's just like, we want the pets to be free from fear. So why not Fear Free? And so that's where it started. And then my dad, just through the years, has built relationships with different veterinary professionals and different pet professionals. And so from there, it was just getting, I mean, literally hundreds of people involved in creating this course. So Fear Free courses aren't just the product of one person. It's really just like hundreds of professionals that are behind this. So it's just really, really good quality information that's been vetted and really updated. So I think that's so important, is that, and it's scientifically based. So it's very sound information. And so that was really creating the initial course for veterinary professionals. And from there, it's expanded into other areas and continuing education for veterinary professionals. And so it's all really about that. And so that's where it started. And it's just like taken off, really. It's just really blown up. It's been really cool to see. And there really is just such a need for it.
Oh, there's such a huge need for it, and it's just it's enlightening and warming to me to know that there's such good people at the helm of this movement. So thank you for that. Um,
Oh, thank
what
you.
what what was the timeline, from him? You were seeing this in your experiences, and then he comes home from this conference. What what are we talking, like, years until the first course came out? Was it pretty quick? I mean, what was that process like?
So one of the first things was, trademarking the name Fear Free. So, that was basically right away. My dad's like, got the idea. My dad is one of those people. He does not hesitate. Like, literally, my dad will have vacations booked out 2 years in advance. That's the type of person my dad is. So as soon as he really had like that forethought to be like, okay, we're mapping this out. So that started right away. So I mean, as soon as he came back, he had the name, and so that then from there it was starting to build that team, and also starting to create that initial course. And so I remember going back to, I believe it was in Ohio where we filmed, and at Bigger Road Animal Hospital, and that's where we filmed the initial Fear Free course, and a lot of the materials for that, like different ways to, for instance, handle a dog for an exam, how to bypass the lobby, or how to handle that stress in the lobby, how to greet a dog. And so it was, I remember being there for the filming of that. But before the filming came the actual writing of the course, writing what do we need in the videos. And so it was a project, and I believe it was at least 2 years, probably 2 or 3 years before it fully came out. And we had the actual published course, had the whole team under us. And, it started off with just really a few people on the team. And now we have nearly 20 people on our Fear Free team. So it was pretty crazy how it just really blossomed and really blew up in just terms of people being really excited about it. And so it's like they took the course and I think the biggest thing has been word of mouth. So even though, we market fear free and we try and promote it in different ways, like when people experience a fear free veterinary visit for themselves like that, it's unlike anything else. And really, it's been a way to really bring people in. So once a person is fear free certified, they don't want to go any other way. Like once they know it and they really believe it for themselves, it's you can't unsee those signs of stress in pets. And to know that you're causing damage, it's something you just don't want to do. And so that's been really amazing in terms of, in the veterinary hospital or really in any of the industries such as grooming, like the pet safety has just gone way up. So the workers' comp claims are way down, and so if people are safer, and then also it's a great way to retain staff, so people feel better. It's not so stressful doing your job because it's more of a joy, and it's almost an art too. So while there are certain protocols and ways that you can approach a pet, like you can be creative and you can have fun with it. And so you're bringing delight to people as well. So when you are providing care for their pet, like they get to see their pet happy. Their pet is more excited, more relaxed about the whole experience than just these little things like maybe writing the pet's name in easy cheese on the exam table as we're doing the care. So it's just these cute little things that make such a big difference. Having treat stations when they come in, the pet maybe gets a bandana that has some adaptable fear-free type of pheromone that helps to lower stress, that's spritz on that bandana that then the pet owner can put on the pet. So just these different things that really add this kind of flavor to the vet visit that makes it more of an experience and makes it more of a fun experience rather than that negative kind of stressful experience. And also that people don't feel alone. So I think in the past, I remember working with a lot of pet parents as a trainer before Fear Free, and people being really stressed to take their pet in, or they were going through the puppy visits and all was going fairly well. And then all of a sudden, the puppy or kitten started to show really extreme signs of stress and maybe did start to act aggressive. And before, a lot of times, at least in Idaho, where I was at the time, it's a little bit more of a traditional state. Like it was put on the owner, like, oh, your pet is misbehaving. You need to help them behave. Well, really, it's not that the pet is trying to misbehave or act out. It's just that they are literally in a fight for their lives from their perspective. They're so stressed out. And so it's really nice because now, the perspective has changed so much where it's not a fight against the pet in order to get the care done. It's really working with the pet and helping them to feel comfortable and relaxed so that we can better provide that care for them. And so really it's not only protected the emotional well-being of pets, but I think the quality of physical care for pets is really improved overall as well, because you actually are getting better vital signs. You are, the blood sugar levels aren't so elevated because the pet is just so highly stressed. Like, the cats they were getting, different readings that were totally off because the cat was just so extremely stressed in the vet hospital. And then now it's like, to have something that's more normal, like we can actually look at the pet in a better way and be able to treat them in a way that's more accurate because of fear free.
Yeah, it's something that you once you experience it and you see it, you can't unsee it. Just like you said, I think um, growing up, going to your traditional vet appointments and grooming appointments and stuff with my own dogs, and seeing just how stressed they made not only my own pets but my entire family in the process, and then to go into a fear-free veterinarian and to see just the immense difference, physically and emotionally, especially. It's just something that I think if you see it and experience it and you're not immediately sold, then I don't want to be around you.
Mhm. Yes.
You
Yes,
know.
exactly. It
Um,
it feels good, and it feels, it's like that, just that feeling of safety and just enjoyment. It's like you can just finally like, oh, like this is like, I actually kind of can enjoy actually taking my pets in. And, I feel less stress. I feel, like when we think about stress, it's like having a plan in place to be able to, handle stress for our pets and to even be able to handle our own stress. Man, it's just such a relief to know that you aren't alone either. Like you have the veterinary team working with you on these issues. You have the pet sitter that's fear free certified that's working with you to keep your pet less stressed during during their stay with you, or the dog walker that comes over and they have the knowledge and the ability to make that walk less stressful for the pet. Like, it just gives, not only for the pet, but really for the pet professional and for the pet guardian, it just reduces stress, it builds trust, and it really builds that relationship. And that's really key, and adds to those long-term relationships that we end up having with our clients because of it.
Yeah, yeah, and there's a lot of science that goes into this. I mean, your education is inspiring. You went to Washington State, and then you went to, I made a note of this. You went to San Francisco Training Academy, the Karen Pryor Academy, and the Purdue Dogs and Cats course, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's incredible. I don't know. I don't think I know anyone that has that level of education. So props to you for that. And
Thank
tell
you.
tell me a little bit about what you learned through these courses and these certifications, and how that is built into Fear Free, and how all the science really comes into this.
Oh, absolutely. So, gosh, well, I am a lifelong learner. Like, I feel like as much as you can learn, the better. And, and I love that. Like, now we are just having so many more studies on animal cognition, animal emotions. And, the more we learn, the better we can do. And one of my good friends is now the late R.K. Anderson, and R.K. Anderson was a veterinarian who specialized in behavior, and he's one of the first guys that actually talked to my dad about behavior and how he needed to think more about fear free before fear free was even a thing, but like, to think about the emotional well-being of pets, and to think about behavior. And I remember RK Anderson was having a conversation with my mom and I one time at dinner, and he was saying, I mean, he was well up into his 80s, I think, at the time, and he was still going to conferences and walking around with his walker that he could sit down on. He's like, "This is the best thing ever. I can, it's just I can rest whenever I want, and I can go at my pace." And but I just love that he was continuing to learn, and he's like, this is just so exciting. He goes, I bet you, he goes, I think in the coming years, what's going to happen is we're going to be able to prove those things that we've always known, but we haven't really been able to show. And he's like, and I was like, what do you mean, RK? And he's like, like love, for instance. He goes, I believe that dogs absolutely have the power to love. But at the time, I remember people were very anti like anthropomorphism. So like you can't put emotions on pets or on animals that
Wow.
they don't feel. And that was big. Like it's changed so much now, thank God. But like at the time, I would even write articles, and I had to be continually aware of like, how do I write this in a way that says what I want, but I'm not putting these feelings on the animals in a way that like maybe looked down upon by someone who's in that scientific realm. But the really cool thing is that's happened, just like RK said, is we are proving those emotions in pets that we've always known have been there. But it's like now science is really showing more and more and more that support for that. So thank God it's changed in that way. And so I think through the years, through taking different courses and training, and going through the different schools, like I just, there is a lot of science that kind of was the foundation, but it's just continually building. And so from there, being part of Fear Free and being the lead animal trainer for Fear Free, I want to put in what I've learned from all of those great teachers who've taught me and those different heroes. And I definitely have those training heroes from like Karen Pryor, and who was the lady who really built up clicker training and made clicker training, taking it from like mammals such as like dolphins and whales, and actually bring that into dog training. And so she wrote this book that was called Don't Shoot the Dog, that still is a great book that I highly recommend reading. It's a great one to like really learn about like why we do what we do, and why animals do what they do, and how we can change it in a better way. And so she created that. And so that and going through the Karen Pryor Academy, like I learned a lot about training multiple species. So I just love like all animals. I'm not a big fan of bugs, but I do I love training different animals. And one of my favorite experiences was being at Jungle Island in Miami, and forming these relationships with some orangutans there, and one specifically that named Peanut, who is just my buddy. And So working with different animals from orangutans to pigs and having different pigs that I've worked with that I love to, horses, dogs, cats. Like here in Prior Academy is just awesome because it really taught me to work with other species. And, there are so many different certifications out there and educational programs out there. And I love that there's that desire now because before, also, when I was, young in the field, I remember going to some of those educational conferences and you really didn't have to necessarily have a certification. You didn't have to, it's like those that were there were kind of the outliers. And now it's becoming, thankfully, more of a standard. And so it's slowly transforming. I think the field is changing really in a positive way. And I think that all of that research and all of those great teachers really are behind Fear Free as well. So it's been really neat to see.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I love that you brought up Don't Shoot the Dog. That book
Hmm.
totally changed my life. I mean, it really did. It was actually one of my very first ever dog walking clients 9 years ago. He had that book on his bookshelf, and I was there for the meet and greet to meet him and his pups. And I just noticed the book on his shelf, and I was like, "Oh, what's that?" And he shoved it in my hand and was like, "Oh, if you're going to work with animals, you have to read this." And
Oh, cool.
yeah, and I've probably bought 100 copies of that book, just giving them to everyone I meet, over the years. I think just the importance, like you said, of continuing education, and there's so much
Mhm.
research happening, and more and more and more, we're learning so much about the emotions that they really do experience, and truly, as you were saying, the science that goes into this. And if we're not continually educating ourselves and doing the proper research, then we will fall behind. And if we fall behind, then we're putting the babies that we are taking care of at risk. So I love that you just have so much education, and that you're staying so on top of this, and that you're implementing all of these different things that you've learned in the fear free courses. That's like I've said, it's just truly inspiring.
Oh, thank you, Doug. Yeah, and I love it. It's like I'm always eager. I think that's the thing, like with our work with pets, is like, to just, to keep that passion and to find like what makes you passionate about what you do. And, for me, it really is that aspect of emotions with our pets and being able to, improve life's ways of protecting overwhelming. So trying to put it in a format that's really easy to digest in that way.
Yeah, yeah. What would be your top advice for someone that is interested in getting into dog training?
So my top advice is definitely look at going through a school. Definitely worth it. And there are a variety of different schools. Some of my good trainer friends have gone through some of the schools that I haven't gone through. And, I think it's just really neat because so many are even updating their curriculum. There are some that are better known that maybe had a more somewhat old school or kind of what you call like balance training kind of methodology, like where it was, kind of having a mix of both. But they have started to update their whole program as well to be more aligned with really protecting the emotional well-being of pets. So I would find out what program you're going through, make sure that they are using updated methods, and then also not only going through those schools but also seeking certification. I think that's so important too because there's the Certification Council for Professional Dog Trainers, so CCPDT, or the IAABC, the International Association of Animal Behavior Consultants. So even though I went through different schools, I also made sure to get my certifications through both of those as well. For that reason I think it's important that we really are educated and that we keep up on our education. So both of those require sort of a baseline knowledge. And then also there is a test that you go through. So I think that just helps you to, really have that behind your name, which is important for people to kind of know what your knowledge base is and also what you're about. So those organizations are also aligned with something called Lima, which is a certain protocol for how do you handle behavior problems. So not jumping to like corrective methods, but instead there's so many ways that we can help our pets through management, for instance, through making sure that they're physically healthy, through teaching them the behaviors that we want them to do and rewarding them for those and redirecting them away from those unwanted behaviors. So many different ways, and there are some organizations that are really good that can help for sure. And the thing with fear-free certification for animal trainers, and actually that's probably a really good place to go to. So I would actually go to fearfreepets.com, look at the animal trainer certification, and right there you're going to see a whole baseline of different certifications that would be accepted as a baseline to even get into our program. So that gives you a good idea, because and I think that's important with the fear-free animal trainer is that we want to have a certain standard of, when people do get a fear-free certified animal trainer, they know that that person has, this educational background. They've gone through these schools or they've gotten these certifications. So I think that getting one or two of those is a really good start. And I like, even now I'm going through my new thing, is I'm going through Atlas Dog Training Academy, which is helping to train service animals. And so I honestly, I'm just one of those that I love to learn. So I don't think there's ever any end to that in sight. So I think the more you can learn, the better.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Um, I've been a pet sitter and a dog walker for 9 years, and I have looked at doing the Karen Pryor Academy every year for the past probably 7 years, and I haven't signed up yet. But I just like you, I'm always just eager to learn, and I'm always wanting to educate myself and just do the most that I can do to better my clients' lives. So I will do that
Oh my
sooner
God,
than
you would
later.
love it. You are like the perfect person for it. So I will write your reference letter if you ever need one. I'm there. So you already got that in the bag.
Oh, thank you, thank you. um, So let's to bring it full circle back to fear free here, and I think a lot of my audience is pet sitters and dog walkers and pet business owners, and I would love for you to talk for a moment about what we can do as pet business owners and as pet sitters and dog walkers to really implement fear free with what we do.
Yes, I would definitely look at fearfreepets.com, and we have a whole list of certifications. So some of the newer ones are the pet sitters. We have groomer certification, boarding and daycare, and we are doing some CE for things like being able to have more fear-free walking experiences with dogs. And we have some that already built into the pet sitter and the boarding and daycare course. So I think that gives a really good start. I would also recommend looking at fearfreehappyhomes.com. So on there, we have a ton of free information, vetted. It's gone through just, numerous rounds and has gone through the veterinary behaviors, looking at everything over. So it's just good quality information that is really reputable, and you can give it to your clients. So sharing that with your clients, a lot of the, things you can print out, you can link over. Like, so I think that is really good. So that's a great way to get involved. And then also looking at fear-free shelters. So if you do any type of rescue work, fostering, that might be something to look at as well. And also one last plug, I have a podcast called Happy Paws. So Happy Paws is presented by Fear Free, and that's where I interview different experts. Like I just interviewed Doug today, right? On how to create a fear-free pet sitting stay and how to have a more fear-free pet walking experience. So definitely check out Happy Paws.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on Happy Paws. That was a true honor for me. And I just want to mimic what you said about the fear-free courses. I've learned so much through the certifications, and I encourage everyone that I meet, whether they're a vet tech or a trainer or a groomer, to uh, go through these courses and to really familiarize yourself with the signs of FAS and fear, anxiety, and stress, and how to minimize those and how to give pets a true positive, loving experience and long-lasting relationship from every angle. there's so much to be said for that. And you know, so thank you for creating these courses. And you know, one last question here at the end is, what's next? You know, what's next for you? What's next for Fear Free? Tell me about it.
So for me personally, what is next is well, in part, I've been working with my rescue dog Nova, and she is. It's so funny how those dogs just happen to come to you, the ones that have lots of different needs. So she is like, oh my god, it takes me full circle because I'm like, she's a door dasher, she's the dog that likes to run away. So it's like this time I'm going at it, with fear-free methods, and it's like so really trying to do it the right way. And so I think for me personally, it's like I feel like we never can grow enough as just even personally, like I feel like every pet teaches us. And so whether it was my daughter's dog, we were his fifth home by the time he was 7 months of age, Otis, and
Wow.
working with him, and he has come such a long ways. Like it just that makes me happy. Like, to be like at the point where I couldn't really even take him outside. He was so fearful of people, really reactive to, at the point like where I can take him around this Manitou Park here in Spokane and take him by people and other dogs, and I'm like, it's actually a joy to take him out now, where it was so stressful before. And so I think like I'm working with the new rescue dog Nova on separation anxiety, just as I needed to with Otis. And so, personally, like I feel like I'm always growing with my pets and learning from different clients' pets. And professionally working on doing service dog training and just continuing to learn and improve in those ways, and getting a little bit more into virtual training and virtual behavior consulting, which I think that's the cool thing with COVID, is that it really got us more comfortable with using some of those virtual platforms, which actually makes it a lot more accessible to even be able to help people. So now I'm able to, where I may do it every once in a while, where maybe I'm working with someone from Latvia, for instance, or somewhere a different, a different country where I'm helping them with their pet, and that was more few and far between, to now where that's kind of a typical thing. So doing more virtual training, and with Fear Free, we are just continuing to expand to other areas as well. And so looking at other species, and we just did the equine certification, building more on things for horses, which I think there's such a need there. And, because horses, we're still pretty behind there, just like it was for dog training. And so there are new ways of doing it, and, just kinder ways of doing it that really are more effective. And so I'm excited about that. And I think we're gonna go a long ways in being able to help in other areas as well, and really being able to, help it to be all of these pet professionals to be on that same page to be able to better help pets.
Oh man, that's so exciting. That's so exciting. I want to take the equine course for sure.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's awesome. It's so good. Like I learned a ton as I was going through it, and I was like, wow, just these little tiny changes like they make such a big difference. And, growing up showing horses where, thankfully I had trainers that were pretty good about, using minimal force, but like, it's just these little tiny changes that we wouldn't really think about, like for trailering, for instance, getting the horse in the trailer. Like a lot of times we may use excess pressure on the horse in order to get them to go in. And so it's like, the horse will eventually get in, but it's because, they're scared, and they're scared they're going away from that threat. Instead, we can do little things like teaching the horse to target. Like we've been working with our little colt, Corey, and teaching him to voluntarily get in the trailer to move around, and he touches a target, which is uh, just a little fly swatter, actually, that's his little target. So you can move him anywhere. Like he'll go up the stairs, he'll do whatever. And my horse Chili is the same way. Like where it's just fun. It's like fun to be able to do different parts of riding. And now when I ride, I actually ride with my treat bag. So I have my treat bag, and it's like it's fun, and Chili loves it. Like it's transformed like his emotions, because for him, as it is for a lot of horses, it's there's always like excess pressure, there's kind of stress, and then all of a sudden the horse, like, because they're learning animals, they want to learn. And a lot of times they love treats, they love pets, so we find what works for that horse. And it's enjoyable, and it really builds that relationship and builds that trust. So it's like the depth of relationships that I have with pets that I've trained in this way goes far beyond what I ever experienced with other animals early on. And and I think it's just continuing to transform, where we learn that just I think even with cats, for instance, so there's like that concept that, oh, cats are untrainable, cats do their own thing, cats have, people are their servants. Well, cats are so fun to train. Like, I love training cats, and it just takes kind of learning, what their mentality is like. We know, what do they want, like. And for cats, they are such fast learners. Like, it takes very few repetitions for them to learn what may take a dog quite a few more repetitions. And so while a cat may be slower and maybe they don't do as many reps in one session, it can maybe take 3 or 4 times, and they've got it. And once they've got it, they've got it for life. So it's just fun, because there's really no limit on which animals we're going to really work with, and teach them different ways to be fear free and to have a more cooperative relationship with our humans.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that you talked about cats. My kitten Athena, she just turned 1, and she's my big girl now. And I think she's trained it probably as good as my golden retriever is. I mean, she plays fetch, she knows to bring it back, she knows to come when called. I mean, she can
Mhm.
give me her paw. She's just I love her so much, and I've implemented all fear free with her, and it's been incredible. It's just been an incredible experience for me, because I was the typical person, before getting Athena. I was like, well, you can't train a cat, that what are you
Mhm.
talking about, training a cat? And then the more I educated myself, and then Athena came into my life, and just I have a whole new perspective now, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, and it just gives you, like, such respect for them, and just this, like, bond that you can't get in any other way. It's, like, almost unexplainable. And yeah, once
Yeah.
just like with fear free, when you go into a fear free vet visit, when you work with a pet in a way, like, where you have that positive reinforcement based relationship, and you have this communication that's built through training, like, once you feel it, once you see it, you can't unsee it or unfeel it. Like, it's just a different quality. And so it's just really, really neat how that really expands our ability to bond even more deeply with our pets.
So true. So true. So tell us where we can find out more about you, and get in contact with you.
So I would definitely encourage visit fearfreepets.com if you are a pet professional. Also look at fearfreehappyhomes.com and Happy Paws podcast. And you can find me on Instagram or Facebook, or you can also email me at Mikkel, Mikkel .becker at gmail.com. So I'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. And for everyone watching, I will put all of her info in the description below, so you can click and go straight to her sites, and get in contact and go through these fear-free courses. It's I just can't say it enough. It's been a game changer for me as a pet sitter and dog walker, and I know for our clients too. So thank you, and just thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Awesome. Thank you, Doug. Always makes my day anytime we talk.